Welcome, my friends. Welcome to my world. I'm your host, Kevin Rutherford. It is Friday, June 10th, and it is time for a freaky free-for-all Friday with a little trucking technology and efficiency thrown in. I'll be joined by, I believe, both John and Joel today. Looks like Joel's already in here. John should be here any minute, I think. I've got a couple things I want to talk about, just weird stuff, because honestly, I got to tell you right now, I am just sick and tired of the news and current events. All the news is bad. I don't want to really talk about it much. Unemployment is up. Not that we're too worried about unemployment right now, but it will become a concern. Inflation hit a new record high in May. That's a problem. Higher than expected. The number just came out this morning. The stock market is reacting badly. It's just a lot of bad news. So I just want to get a little weird today, have a little fun with it. When you read the news today, it's just human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria. I don't know when it's going to end. I don't throw in many movie lines, but that one just seemed to fit today. I don't throw in many movie lines because I don't know many. That one I remember for some weird reason from the 80s. I don't watch a lot of movies. But, all right, let's... looks like John is coming in right now, so we'll go ahead and bring in Joel. Joel, welcome back.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. I wasn't sure if I should refer to you as Joel or the Grape Ape.
Yeah, we got the Purple Beast built and on the ground, and it's over at the Mott Center, and hopefully we'll have it on the road here before too long. So looking forward to that.
I absolutely love that color. You'll be easy to spot.
Well, that was the whole idea, and I don't know. We went through a bunch of color chips, and that one just kind of jumped out at me, and I said, "We'll try that," and it turned out a lot better than what I expected. That color really gets a lot of attention, so pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it's beautiful. Isn't that exciting when you get a new truck like this?
Yeah, I do a lot of fleet stuff, so it's always boring white and just basic interiors, and there's no goodies or eye candy on it. So being able to do this one is a whole lot of fun for me. It's been years since I've done kind of an owner-operator type build, so we're talking about miles per gallon and smiles per gallon here, I guess. And I think this truck's going to do both in a big way.
All right, excellent. Well, let's bring John in to join the conversation. John, welcome back.
Hi, Kevin. Great to be here.
Hey,
glad to be back.
Yeah, I'm seriously considering taking you up on that job offer.
I'd love to have you. It'd be fun. I don't know, what, so someone, be perfect, I thought, for an owner operator who's got some freedom, that's maybe working the spot market or has freedom to get away from things, to control their loads, to go away on a few weekends and actually make some decent catch. So it's a pretty cool deal.
Yeah, it looks like a lot of fun. You and I would get to hang out. That would be great.
Oh, yeah, and the work you do in between is not hard, and you're getting paid the same on those days too. So it's like it really, from the time you leave your house, you're being paid that daily rate to the time you get back. Whether you're riding an airplane to the shop to pick up the truck or driving the truck or at the track, helping out with tires and fuel and you get fed because you don't have to get your wallet out all weekend. Like you won't even have to. So it'd be fun. Yeah.
Well, I'd love to. Obviously, it's not going to happen. It would be a lot of fun, though. I think the work that you have to do would be fun. It doesn't even sound like work to me. Sounds like a fun weekend.
Oh, it absolutely is. Yeah. So the truckie is, as they're called, motorsport. I hope that doesn't offend anybody, but it's a term of endearment, actually. Normally on the weekends, the way our team's structured, he'll handle fuel and tires as well, right? So the engineer I'll tell them what set I want on, what my cold pressures need to be, and the truck drivers handle that stuff on the days, and they also handle fuel. We'll call out a fuel load for each session and tell them exactly how many pounds of fuel to have in the car and so forth. And they run back and forth to the suppliers too. So basically, they're on the pit cart, golf cart, picking up tires, picking up fuel, anything else we need, while we're there, handling all logistics kind of stuff while we're at the track. And then during the race, normally we'll use the truck driver as what we call the dead man, meaning or the fire bottle guy. So he'll be suited up and have a fire bottle, or he'll be the guy that holds the valve open on the fuel rig. So you're part of the pit stop. You have to be there, and we do one or two. They're sprint races basically, but we do have a stop or two stops depending on the length of the race. And so he's the guy that's got to be fully suited up, and you'll be holding the valve that holds the fuel rig open, the fuel valve that feeds the car through the quick connect that we use, which is like an aircraft quick connect. It's a really interesting thing that plugs into the side of the car that also vents. And there's a big tank that's up on stilts basically that holds the fuel and dumps it into the car. So you'd be there holding the valve, and it's called the dead man, but you're the guy who lets go of it when everything catches on fire is what it boils down to. If you see if you see a spark anywhere, anything, you let go of that valve and it closes.
So,
but I should have put it in the ad or in the post. We had a guy that was really interested. He just messaged me. It sounded great. It was perfect. Got his start in driving and working for an NHRA team, which wouldn't be a whole lot different. So he knew the gig, and he just sold his truck and trailer, and he was kind of stepping away from being an owner operator. I'm like, oh, this is perfect for you. But the one caveat that I didn't put in there is we have one trip to Canada this year, and I need a guy who can go to Canada. So that might eliminate you as well, unless you've got some sort of counterfeit thing that you've got to make that work. But
I was just going to say, if I wanted this, I would be magically vaccinated when I needed to be.
I figured you would, yeah.
Well, it sounds like you may have somebody already. I was going to say, I'm sure we could fill that position here today.
I probably had a dozen. I probably had a dozen guys interested. We haven't hired anybody yet, so it's still open. But the one guy I really wanted is not able to go to Canada right now. So we'll figure it out. So. Yep.
All right. So I have
one. Yeah, it's a cool gig.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of fun. I have one trucking topic I want to touch on, and then I have my weird topic for the week. The trucking topic. I'm two articles this morning I read, two reports. This is kind of interesting. I've been going back and forth. Why are we messing with hydrogen fuel cell when we're so close to just pure electric? But there seems to be a lot to the hydrogen fuel cell. And all of a sudden, we have two new companies who are going to build hydrogen fuel cell trucks here pretty quickly. One of them is Too Simple. The same company that's doing all of the autonomous they just started a new company called Hydron, and they're going to build a hydrogen fuel cell truck. They think they'll have it out in like less than 2 years. And that's Hydron. And then I found another company I've never heard of, Hyzon, Hyzon. They've already got some hydrogen fuel cell trucks on the road, and they're going to be doing more. It's weird. Basically my whole life, certainly the whole time in the industry, we've had fewer and fewer truck manufacturers to pick from. Go back when we had Autocar and Marmon and, White and REO Speedwagon or whatever we had. There were just all kinds of different truck manufacturers. And over time, they've either disappeared, been bought, rolled into other companies. Mack and Volvo are basically one company now. Hell, Ford, GMC, and Chevy used to make Class 8 trucks. I had both a GMC and a Ford. They're gone. So, but now all of a sudden, it's this whole electric vehicle thing with cars and trucks. We just have brand new companies building vehicles. That's almost been unheard of my whole lifetime.
I think it's easier. Don't take this the wrong way. Nothing against any of them, but it's all part shelf stuff, right? So Rivian buys, wheel bearings and brakes and rotors and all that stuff from somewhere and suspension bits from somewhere else, and you assemble it all. And electric has made it easier. There's less to do. You don't have to build an engine. You don't have to build a really complicated transmission. I mean, it really has opened it up for people who are clever enough to know how to source these things and assemble them all. And I think it's cool. I'm seeing Rivians all over the place where I am right now. I don't know, a bunch of deliveries must have been made. I don't go a day without seeing one, even in the little town where I am here.
Wow.
And those things seem to be popping up everywhere. I don't know if you're seeing them out west or not, but it's a cool little truck. It's smaller than I thought. I actually like this size that it is, rather than I thought it was a full size. It's more kind of Dodge Dakota size.
Yeah.
Than a full size. But I think it's easier, and that's not to discount what anybody's doing, but I really think it's easier. And on the hydrogen fuel cell front, I recently got some insight, and I got to be careful, on our favorite hydrogen truck manufacturer, Nikola. And you notice their whole Class A truck completely changed, right? It looks nothing like it did before.
Right.
It's now that thing's made in Italy. It's an Ital. It's not an Iveco. It was designed by a company called Ital Design. It's been around forever, but they're the engineering partner on that thing now, and it's coming from Europe. So they've abandoned their original thing that they did. The engineering firm that does all their other work, the little buggy and their pickup truck and stuff, that they're still going full steam with, which might be where my source comes from. But the big truck has gone. It's been subcontracted now, and that seems to be working. A local carrier has one. PGT just got one here in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it's almost like these are now they're like kit cars. Like you said, you go out and you buy stuff off the shelf and you just put something together.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of the component manufacturers like Dana and Meritor, their focus went really hard, kind of just away from, typically we've known them for axles basically and drive shafts. They went heavy into the componentry for the EV. So a company like Dana now, they offer the battery cooling systems, the integrated motors for the axles, all the controllers, and they sell literally to every single one of these EV manufacturers that we're talking about. And it's interesting because I think battery electric is going to be the final mile solution, and so that opens the door, I think, to a lot of manufacturers that may not have a huge dealer network or parts network in place, because the trucks aren't going to be traveling all that far, and they generally are going to be returning home every night. They can work directly with the customer to put, parts in stock, and the customer's not really having to worry about, what if I get this thing out in the middle of Montana and it breaks down? What are we going to do? Hydrogen, on the other hand, I think is going to be the long haul solution. Both Daimler and Volvo, I think they're actually working together on a hydrogen solution, and I think that's where we're going to see more of the today's manufacturers really working hard. Kenworth is working on a hydrogen solution with Toyota. They have the dealer network in place where the long haul trucks, if there's a problem on the road, you could actually get it into a dealer to get things fixed. Where the battery electric, I think it makes it a lot easier for people to get into that market and play, because they don't have to worry about a huge dealer network to support the vehicle.
Yeah, that's a good point. I just thought about something as we were talking about this. Isn't this kind of the way truck manufacturing started? You just bought a bunch of components and threw a truck together, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were all made out of the same stuff. Yeah, just assembled a little differently with a different body on it. Yep.
Yeah.
You got it.
All
so
right.
Joel and I got into a conversation last week. He sent me a link to an electric supercharger, turbocharger, and some other stuff. And it blows me away that hybrid's been so greatly ignored. And if you look at the infrastructure of some of these hydrogen fuel cells, the hydrogen cell is generating electricity. It's not, you're not burning it in an engine, right? So it ends up being, there's still batteries involved. And I'm assuming that those hydrogen trucks are probably capable of being plugged in to be topped up as well.
Yeah, I would think so.
They'd be foolish if they weren't.
Right.
So the range extended EV is the cool thing. That's what the Wrightspeed guys were onto some years ago, and I think they're a little bit ahead of their time. So I'm not sure that they're still around. But they used this little turbine, basically an APU out of the back of a jet, is what I think it was. It ran super efficient, didn't need any kind of after treatment system on it. It sat there and ran at one speed and generated electricity. But it was also battery EV. But worst case scenario, that thing would come on and keep your battery topped up. So you're still burning a little bit, I mean, a tiny bit of fossil fuel, but it works. So what's going on now is you've gone to the hydrogen fuel cells that are generating electricity to keep the battery topped up. Regardless, there's got to still be a battery involved, I'm sure.
Got it. So,
and then
we had that conversation last week or the week before where I keep getting this question. People come up with this idea of why don't we plug an inverter in and then charge the batteries from the batteries and create this loop, and that can't work. But I actually found an article where they've shown why. The F-150 Lightning, it has a port back in the bed that you can plug into and then use your vehicle as an energy source. It could be a backup battery for your house, which is a really cool idea. So, of course, somebody decided to plug the charging cable from the truck into the charging port in the bed.
It's that simple, right?
To see what would happen.
Simple, yeah.
And it actually works. It charges the vehicle, and they said it would probably sit there and do it for about 150 hours. But they actually calculated there's a 12% loss. So it sits there doing nothing except recharging itself over and over and over until it just runs out of power.
Yeah, nothing's free, that's for sure. You're not making energy out of nothing.
You're not. You convert it from one thing to another. It makes heat, right? Where'd that heat come from? That was energy. I don't care if it's whatever the machine is. If it's got one bearing, it could have one really good ceramic bearing, and it's still going to have drag, and it's still going to take power away. You might get it to sit there and run a little longer and do some sort of gyrations, but it's not going to. You can't make a perpetual motion machine. It just doesn't work. There are too many outside forces acting upon it. So yeah,
I'm pretty sure if I would have bought one of those, I would have probably done that within the first 2 hours.
I'm gonna plug it in right here. Plug it in.
Let's see how this works. Wait a minute. What if I plug it in and go driving? Shouldn't that work better?
There you go.
Yeah.
Shouldn't I just be able to drive forever then?
You have to think of the batteries on these things as being no different than fuel tanks, right? It's just a fuel tank.
Exactly.
It's the same thing.
Right.
It's energy storage. Yeah. Yep.
Here's the other thing. I get it. We're all freaked out about electric. You panic when it runs out. What are you going to do? But when you think about it as a fuel tank, like you just said, when we had that massive snowstorm last winter and all those people were stuck on the highway for 24 hours or whatever it was, and people are going, oh, what would you do if you had an electric vehicle and you ran out of power? The same thing you would do if you had a gas vehicle and you ran out of gas. What's the difference?
Pretty much.
No difference.
Pretty much.
You do have more options with gas or diesel, I realize, but it's out there. It takes a little more planning right now. That's going to change soon. That's not going to be long.
Right. That's a good analogy to think of the battery as a fuel tank. That's what it is. There's fuel in it. You can put more fuel in it. You can take fuel out of it. That's really all we're talking about here.
It's really all it is.
All right.
And again, I love the simplicity of it. I love how much, these vehicles are going to be more simple. The drive line is going to be simple. There'll be less electronics in the charging system and the drive systems than you have right now in your emission system.
I think so. Yeah.
It's going to simplify things to an amazing degree. And again, it's going to be a different skill set to work on it, but sharp techs will be able to, and I guarantee you we'll be able to do different charging schemes, and we'll be able to do different, just like a Tesla in plaid mode. We could, if you want more power, it won't be hard. I think it'll be quite easy actually. So that's it's going to be fun. I think the future is bright.
Yeah, I do too. The other thing I read today along these lines, a company developing solar vehicle wraps. So you'll now be able to wrap the whole vehicle with really, really thin, flexible solar panels.
I saw that.
That's brilliant.
I've seen a company that's also doing the window glass as solar as well.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
It'd be interesting to see how that. Yeah, I think Hyundai or Kia or one of those. They're actually, I think, offering the moonroof as a solar moonroof now in a production car.
Oh, cool.
So it's pretty cool. Yeah, pretty damn cool.
Hey, I just thought about something. With the size of the windshield in my coach, I should be able to power the whole damn thing if that was solar.
There you go.
And do you have any panels on that yet?
What's that?
Do you have any panels on there yet?
I really don't. I've got to start working on that, but I'm trying to decide on what batteries I want to put in. The lithium iron phosphate are actually starting to come down in price.
We had that discussion for my truck, and I had a whole group of engineers standing around, and we went through all the batteries and the different options and stuff. We came back to the glass mat still. When you start to figure in costs, we're just outside of where it makes sense to switch over.
Right.
We're getting close, though.
And that's kind of why I'm waiting. I can deal with the fact that I've got some weak batteries in the coach. I don't have any plans to use it for the rest of the summer. I probably won't go out with it again till fall. So I just keep holding off doing the battery project. And then when I do the battery project, I want to do the solar at the same time. So I'm kind of holding off.
Well, you're a technology geek, and I am sure that the cost difference isn't going to put you out of business. If I was you, I'd go out and get them just to play with them.
And that's the other thing, too. For me, this isn't about cost. I'm not trying to do this the cheapest way I can. I'm trying to learn what the best option is going to be in the future.
Right. 4 or 5 people hit me up why I haven't switched over in my truck, and the main reason I haven't is just, that's what we've done in the fleet. I know that it works. I know what the cost is. I know what to expect, and I've got 1,000 other things going on with this truck that I'm going to be upgrading and hopefully working with John on some suspension stuff. And I just don't have time to track new batteries and, work all the details out of it. And so I just went with a known. But several guys I see out there, they have tried some different batteries, and they seem to be having some success. We don't see it in the big fleets yet, just because of the bean counters get a hold of it and tear it apart. It doesn't quite make sense yet, but it's getting close. Getting real close.
There you go. All right,
Kevin. I haven't researched this in a while. What is the energy density like compared to a glass mat?
I'm now seeing batteries that I think they're actually a little smaller than a Group 31. I'm not sure what I keep seeing, but I'm seeing those at like 200 amp hours now.
Okay. And what's the weight?
They're like around that Group 31 size. They're weighing around 30 to 35 pounds versus 75 pounds for the glass.
Okay,
so they're about half the weight. Yeah,
about half the weight. Yeah, for the same density. Yeah, that's big. That's a big.
Yeah,
deal.
and
it will be.
Yeah, I'm not so sure that it's that big of a deal when we're talking about the total weight of the vehicle, but weight savings is weight savings. I think the bigger advantage is when I look at putting batteries in this coach. I've got 6. I think they're 8D. Who came up with the way of designating batteries? Why do we have one battery called a Group 31 and another one's called an 8D? What the hell is that?
I don't know. So I've got an old little stand-up electric forklift, one you walk behind here in the shop. Yeah. And it's old. I think it's a Clark or something, but it's electric. It's got 4 those 6-volt batteries. And you know what group number those are? The old the classic 6-volt?
No.
It's a 1.
A 1?
So I went with the first. It's a 1, yeah. I was ordering batteries for this. They might like what group size, and it goes, it's a 1.
A
I'm
1.
Like, 1. Like an old G-pad. Remember old 6-volt Jeeps that little with the 3 holes in the top, and they still look exactly the same. They've not modernized those at all. So it's got the 3 caps, and it's a 1. So yeah.
Who came up with this? Jeez, it's worse than the whole tire size thing, which is also bizarre.
It's not as bizarre as it used to be. At least it makes sense now. I mean, the old tire size thing was just weird.
Well, even the new one,
the G7815s or whatever.
Well, yeah, but on the new one, why did we do this weird ratio thing where, in order to know the height of the sidewall, you first have to know the width of the tread, and then you have to do the math.
Right.
Just tell us what the size is.
Percentage.
Kevin, you're gonna love my new truck. I've got some front tires, our steer tires on there. They're going to be 365 70s, so they're going to be wider than normal. And I'm gonna revisit the whole wide base thing with Michelin. They're going to support this here. So, I'm going to work with John here and this Australian company about doing some suspension modifications to hopefully solve some of the issues that I kept bumping up against in our fleet operation in terms of tire wear and handling and whatnot. So we've got some fairly sophisticated stuff, it looks like, that we're going to dig into here to try and solve some of the issues. But I think you're really going to enjoy some of the things that we're looking at doing here as far as the suspension technology and hopefully getting these wide base tires to perform the way that I think they should perform. I know a lot of people are happy with what they have right now, but I think we can do better. And so I'm looking forward to really digging into this and playing with it.
Excellent. Yeah, that's exciting. All right, I'm going to throw out my weird topic for the week. Did either one of you guys ever play with the little toy soldiers and plastic army guys?
Of course. I have a story about that whenever you're done. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So
I almost burned my parents' house down playing with those things one day. Yeah.
Oh, you wanted a flamethrower, huh?
A napalm attack.
Oh, we did. Yeah. Yeah. Well, those things burn really well. Yeah.
I tried to make candles out of them once. That didn't work so well.
Wow.
Yeah, that didn't work so well. So I was into that. I had a big collection. I'd set up these massive battles, and then, when I was tired of it, I would drop the mother of all bombs, a bowling ball.
You remember, was it Second City TV, that old sketch comedy show? Remember the guy who used to play in the sandbox? He was an adult, but he played with it. It was one of the sketches on there. I forget the tall, skinny guy. I forget the comedian's name who did it. But yeah, he was on Second City. He used to have the big wars with them. So my buddy and I couldn't have been 10 years old, maybe 11, and we were having a little war with our guys. Which maybe that's a little old for that, but I don't care. So we were out, and my dad always kept a regular oil squirt can. It was like half gasoline, half oil that he used. It was penetrating oil. That was his we didn't use WD-40. It was too cheap for that.
So that is kind of like napalm.
So. It's like pretty much can and rob the mom's lighter because everybody smoked back then too. So it's like, and if you squirt it and hold the lighter in front of it, it was a perfect flamethrower.
Oh man!
So so I was napalming my buddy's little plastic guys, and a little flame flew and went under this bush that we had. It was like August. It was super hot, and it went up like paper. And it was right under the eaves of the house. And luckily, it went up like paper because it just went and didn't catch anything else on fire. It was gone. It was like poof.
Oh man!
So I got the hose out immediately, which happened to be right there too, and then but it was gone before anyone got there or anything. Big. It was puff of smoke, and this it looked like a Christmas tree, but it wasn't. It was really funny. I don't know what kind of shrub it was. I don't know what shrub.
Hey, Don.
But yeah.
If you throw some catalyst on there, the puff of smoke would have disappeared.
Would have disappeared without smoke. just imagine how it would be good that penetrate. My dad told me to a couple drops of that.
There you go.
Oh man. Well, the point of this actually wasn't to talk about the little green man, but we seem to be having fun with it. The point of this was I have found the adult version of this, and I'm having a lot of fun with it.
Are you on your Xbox again?
So no, the adult version it's a garden story. So if people are tired of my garden stories, they can go listen to something else. So the adult version of this, I'm now directing massive amounts of insect soldiers.
Okay. I like where you're going with this.
I'm learning about this whole insect thing, because I don't use any chemicals at all. Nothing. No chemical fertilizers, no fungicides, no pesticides, no nothing. I got to figure out how to, and this year it's been a really cold, wet spring, still is. I mean, we haven't started summer yet here at all. And because of it, I've just got bugs all over the place, stuff I've never seen, little tiny spider mites, aphids, these little slugs that are about the size of a grain of rice, but they are just devouring stuff in the garden. Every day I'm out there fighting with them. So I started to do research, and the best way to counter this naturally is with other bugs. So today I'm going to be out there and I've done a little bit of this last year, but I'm going to be doing a lot more of it. Today, I will be out in the garden when I'm off the show today, spreading 1,500 ladybugs, about 3,000 praying mantises, about 10,000 nematodes, and you just let these things loose, and it's like a battlefield out there.
Well, I am glad that you mentioned insects, because when you said Kevin and Army Men in the adult version, I really thought the show was going off the rails at that point.
You mean farther off the rails?
Yeah, I'm pretty happy that ended up with insects.
Yeah, I'm not going to become a missionary or anything.
So Kevin, do you control the right mix of insects? So you get the ones that'll take care of, get rid of the others. That's brilliant. That's really I like that. For pest control in your garden, you have the friendly ones that can take out the not so friendly ones, and
it's incredible. So here's what happened last year. So let's just take aphids, because there's all kinds of examples, but aphids are these tiny, tiny, tiny little bugs. There could be 1,000 of them on a plant, and you could be looking right at the plant, you wouldn't even know they were there. They blend right in. They're really, really small, and they don't eat the leaves, so you don't even see the damage. What they do is they get on the stems, and they just suck the juice out of the stems. And when you get enough of them on there, all of a sudden the plant just dies. You have no warning, you didn't see the damage coming. The next thing you know, your plant's just dead. So ladybugs, we think of them as these little cute, my God, isn't that what they named the Volkswagen after? They're supposed to be these little cute, they are voracious predators. They'll eat 15 or to 30 of these aphids a day, one ladybug, and I'm letting 1,500 of them loose. But here's the problem. They're so efficient, you let them loose, within 2 or 3 days, they'll just totally eliminate all the aphids. But then they'll leave because there's no food for them anymore. So wow. One of the things I'm doing this year till I get this all figured out, I actually have ladybugs on a subscription. I'll get new ladybugs every 2 weeks just in case. But now I've learned the next step to this. Instead, this can get pretty intense. You can plant certain plants that will attract certain bugs that will now become the other food for the ladybugs. So when they clear out all the aphids, they can start feeding on these other bugs that don't hurt your plants, by the way, so you don't care if they're in your garden or not. Now your ladybugs have plenty of food, so they'll hang around.
Nice.
That's brilliant. That really adds some more fun to gardening. I like that.
It does. I have this other one I'll be putting out today for cabbage worms. So cabbage worms will get on all the brassicas, cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, all those. Again, they'll just devour the plant overnight sometimes. So most of the time what you have to do is you just have to keep an eye on them. You have to look on the plant, you just pick them off and squish them. But they can start to overwhelm. If the little white moths that fly around, you'll see them, they'll start coming out here in about 2 weeks. They're the ones that lay the eggs on the plant, and then the eggs hatch and they start eating the plant. So on some days you'll see me running around in the garden, and only a few clothes because I'm trying to get as much vitamin D as I can, barefoot with a net, trying to catch all these little white moths. So I'm sure my neighbors think I'm insane. But
oh my!
a much better way of doing this is I get this. It's just a little card, and you hang the card on a plant or on a post in the garden somewhere, and it has like 20,000 eggs for this little tiny wasp. You can't even see these things; they're so small. But the wasp finds the cabbage worms and lays its eggs in the cabbage worm. And then its eggs feed on the worms, so the worm can't feed on your plant.
Yeah, I love this.
I do too.
I never thought. I was surprised my grandfather didn't do stuff like this. He might have actually. You never. I know. I don't know that, but yeah, that's
Here's
great.
the only thing that I got out of this whole thing. Kevin's running around his garden with as little clothes as possible, playing adult army men.
I hope one of his neighbors has
a video camera rolling or something.
So one of the neighbors has to have a Ring camera of you or something, Kevin. There's probably a YouTube channel that you don't know about.
Hey, I forgot there's a flamethrower in this story. I have a little hand truck with a 20-pound propane tank on it and a big torch. I walk around and use it to de-weed. It's the best way to kill your weeds in the garden. Yeah, flamethrower.
Yeah, my grandpa used to do that. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's all I've got for the week. Anybody else have anything?
Yeah, I got a couple of things here real quick. I've got a few owner-operators out there that have, kind of bought the whole Volvo iTorque downsped specs. Kim and Al Hemerson just moved into a new Volvo 860 that has basically the Plover transportation spec going on. It's a 6x4, 2.26 rear axle ratio with a 14-speed overdrive. Got Axline. He just moved out of a 800 horsepower Caterpillar glider kit. I think it was a Peterbilt, and he bought a 2.16 lift axle, just like my purple truck. There's a few more guys out there running around with them nowadays, and the feedback that I'm getting is pretty incredible. Actually, they're coming out of these trucks with way more horsepower, and they are really enjoying the performance of the truck, and obviously really liking the fuel efficiency part of it. So Kim and Al's truck has this huge moose guard that they hung on the front of it. And I kind of cringed when I saw that. I thought, oh, God, here we go. We're going to be down to 6 miles a gallon with this truck. And their first trip out, they were loaded both ways. They ran from Iowa to Cincinnati and back, right close to 80,000 pounds both ways, and 65-ish mile an hour. They were right at 8 miles a gallon, even with that big old parachute on the front. So was pretty happy to see that number on a brand new truck. It's only going to get better. They're getting ready to do a West Coast swing, so it'll be interesting to see what the numbers come back on the West Coast swing. But it's really interesting to hear these drivers, that have 4, 5, 6 million miles under their belt talk about what they like about the aggressively downsped gearing with that crawler gear transmission. Al got into a position in the old part of Cincinnati where it was really tight and hilly, and he had to back around some obstacles, and he was able to use that crawler gear. And he called me, and he was just like, "This is, the greatest thing ever to get around. You don't get that hoppiness, or he calls it a power hop when you're backing up and you're cranking the wheel hard, and the truck wants to kind of bounce a little bit with the regular automated manuals." He said absolutely none of that. It was just as smooth as can be. And he came out of a Peterbilt that had a 500 Cummins with an 18 speed and a 308, and to this point, it's really, really liking the whole downsped concept. So, pretty cool feedback.
Excellent.
Hey, Joel.
Mm-hmm.
How did you end up with I saw you did the 226 on that. Why did you go that route rather than something a little faster even for those guys?
Well, they went 226 because they're not going to run as fast as, a lot of people want to run. So with the more moderate speed, the 226 kind of works. Anywhere between 226 and 205, depending on where your cruise speed is going to be set at, I think works well. They're going to be out west a little bit more, so I was looking at that interaction between direct drive and 10th gear at a more moderate highway speed, and it just worked a little bit better than 2.16. Okay. If they would have been closer to 70 mile an hour, definitely would have put them in 2.16. But they really enjoy it so far, and he went with a 14 speed instead of the 13 speed, and that 14 speed is purely a luxury item. You do not have to have it, but it is so nice with that extra deep reduction when you do get into a tight situation like he was in, being able to drop that thing into the low crawler and back up with it and have a whole lot of control with the truck.
Joel, do you know those ratios off the top of your head, the low crawler and the reverse?
Yeah, it's 42 to 1 with a 14 speed, where your regular 18 speed manual, you're roughly 18 to 1.
Okay. That's a big difference.
You're over twice. It's huge. Yeah. It really makes a big difference. And it's something that Al was really concerned about. He was not wanting to look like a rookie backing under trailers and sliding tandems and stuff. And I get that, it's frustrating when you're just doing the everyday thing and the truck is giving you fits trying to get, just simple things done like sliding a tandem, and that crawler gear is just so nice to have. So pretty cool feedback.
Speaking of transmissions, I had notes on this. I forgot about it the other day. Eaton and Cummins just launched a tool for being able to select the right transmission. It walks you through it, asks you a bunch of questions about your operation. It's actually pretty nice. I like it. I wish we had more tools like this, because rather than trying to deal with the salesman who might not know and he's got to go back and keep checking on things and he doesn't tell you something that might be available, to be able to go in there myself and say, here are the options. I can look at all the ratios. It's really a pretty nice tool.
Yeah, it is. I had that conversation with the Cummins Eaton people after we had the big blow up about the 18 speed and the efficiency out on social media. I had just called to double check what I understood to be true with those folks, and they were telling me about the tool that was out there and some of the new stuff they have coming down the pike. So they're going to have some similar stuff coming. It won't go quite to the degree that Volvo has went. Scania is going to bring over their powertrain, and it's going to end up in the International, and they are going to almost directly copy the ratios that Volvo's using in their transmission, and the Scania engine is going to be very similar to the Volvo, so they're going to have a very good downsped solution soon.
Good.
My understanding is that PACCAR is going to a 14 liters is what I'm hearing. And it's going to have some upgrades so that it can run at lower RPM as well. So we're going to start seeing this as we, make the transition to electric and hydrogen. We're going to really start to see the downsped engines really kind of come into their own to be that bridge to get us to hydrogen and electric.
Yeah. All right. Good stuff. Hey, let's grab a call. Let's go to Texas. Paul, what's up?
Howdy.
Hey,
Well, it was summer in Texas yesterday.
Before you get started, earlier John was telling us the story about the racing and the job opening, and he used the term truckie. Isn't that a Australia, New Zealand thing?
Yeah,
I
we're
thought
truckies.
so. That's the term they use down under, right? You're truckies.
Yep.
Thought so.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Wonder how that got into
And
racing.
IES.
all of American motorsport calls them truckies. Yeah, that's
Huh.
it. That's the job. It's truckies. Yep.
Wonder how that happened.
Well, we have a ton of so those guys, the Aussies and the New Zealanders, almost every team has at least one on it. They're great mechanics generally. I don't know why or what happened down there in this form of racing, sports cars and Formula cars in particular. You can't throw a stone in the paddock and you're gonna hit one.
Huh.
Like there's so many Australians and New Zealanders here.
Well, that's what those Kiwis are good for, throwing stones at.
Look at Burt Munro with the world's fastest Indian.
That guy's my hero. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, used to make his own pistons in his garage at home. He bought an old Army Indian motorcycle, like a 1923 or something, and he came over to Salt Lake and did 200 mile an hour in 1960. Yeah. So, I forgot what I was going to talk about now. Oh, a question for Joel is the turbo compound technology, is that available in the VAH, the auto hauler?
I don't think so yet. There's not enough room to cram it all in there. I think we may see it go relatively soon. So it's not there yet, but I believe it's coming. Yep.
Because a friend of mine, he just got a new Volvo. He sent me pictures the other day, but him and his brother, he went and picked it up the other day, and him and his brother driving the 389 Peterbilt, or 388, same thing. And they loaded the same place, and they rode together, and at their first fill up, the Volvo, brand new, the Peterbilt with about 1.2 million miles on it. The Volvo took on 13 gallons less fuel than the Peterbilt.
Yeah, it's
pretty low. So, yeah.
Pretty amazing. There's a guy in Wisconsin, an owner-operator, that actually had bought a used lift axle truck from a friend of mine that I helped him spec the truck, and he came out of the Peterbilt with the big Cummins in it, and he's gained like 3 miles a gallon, and he's just jumping for joy because he done this just as the fuel prices started to take off, and he was in that 5 mile a gallon range with his Pete, and he's in that mid 8s now, and you take today's fuel prices and you start looking at the impact of that. It's amazing. Al Hemerson, he done the math on this trip that he just made, and he's got a buddy that's in that 4.5 mile a gallon range, and he said the difference would have been like $700 on one round.
It
was nuts.
insane.
It was crazy. Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Ah.
Crazy. Absolutely.
Well, and fuel
I don't know how you cost justify this stuff. It's nuts. Yeah.
Yeah, fuel went up again.
Think about it.
We're up another 5 cents.
Yeah, just think about Europe and some other developed countries, shall we say? You could live in the Middle East and have really cheap fuel, or maybe some parts of South America. But they've been dealing with this forever.
Yeah,
I mean, what's fuel cost in Europe? Well, I was in England. Actually, last trip I was in France in the early 2000s, and as I recall, I remember I had a little diesel Fiat, the rental car, and the diesel there was somewhere in the $6 to $8. It equaled $6 to $8. They were on the euro then, so it was euro. So, but it was like 6 to 8 euros a gallon in the early 2000s. 20 years ago.
Yeah. Well,
so some of these technologies and some of this efficiency and some of the stuff that we're seeing here now, and a company like Volvo, who's an international company, who's got they've got customers throughout the world who have been dealing with insanely high fuel prices forever. So efficiency is it hasn't been that important here, and maybe it's going to be. So.
In 1992 in New Zealand, a car I bought, it had a huge fuel tank on it, Australian muscle car, and we were paying $1 a litre for fuel in 1992 for petrol.
Yeah. Hey, Paul.
Yeah.
So, now it's
Paul.
a litre over there, $12 a gallon.
Hey, Paul. It's a bunch of dumb Americans listening. You got to do the conversion. Nobody understands what $1 a liter. That almost sounds cheap.
3.9 litres is 1 US gallon.
Okay, there you go.
But at that time, New Zealand money was worth about half of what a US money was worth. So we were still paying $2 a gallon in 1992 American money.
Yeah.
Roughly.
Yeah, well, I Joel, you and I have talked about this. We were working on fuel economy when it was 80 cents a gallon, and everybody thought we were idiots.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. It is just amazing the number of people that have, hit me up through Facebook, private messages, whatever, that they're in that 379 with the 800 horsepower Cat. It's like, please help me. What can I do? I mean, it is what it is when you have that truck. I hate to say that, but I mean, there's only so much you can do. And when your aerodynamics are a brick and you've got this great, big, huge, it's just nuts. And I feel bad for these guys. I really do, but there's only so much you can do. The only thing you can really tell them to do is slow down, and they don't want to do that.
I know.
Yeah.
Last week, somehow, I got, I really don't post on Facebook anymore, but I still scroll it almost every day. Look for ideas. I see trends that are going on in all the different groups. And somehow I ended up on the list of this Ohio truck sales. Never seen them before, but all of a sudden, just post after post was showing up in my feed. The funny thing was, though, like 7 posts in a row is this company, this Ohio Truck Sales, and it's a picture of the salesman standing there shaking somebody's hand who just bought a truck from them. Every single one of them were 379 Pete's.
I saw that, and the guy buying the truck's got this big old smile on his face, and I'm thinking to myself, that's going to last about 3 days, and then you're going to realize the problem that you've got. I mean, I was dumbfounded. I was just looking at the expression on that guy's face and just thinking to myself, eyes wide open, man, and you're walking right into it. I was like, oh, gosh, here we go.
Not only were most of them just 379s, which is bad enough, but they were like 379s on steroids. The big billboard-sized bumper, the big drop visor, like giant stacks, and, everything you could do to screw up aerodynamics, they took it to the limit.
Yeah. Yeah. There was another post out there that kind of hit home a little personally here. So, this guy, he says, I just saw one of those 10-mile-a-gallon trucks running around the bypass around Fort Wayne going 57 mile an hour. Of course, this was my stepson out there running this truck. And they're all laughing about, well, how can you make any money at 57? And they're going through these scenarios about you could run X amount of miles more and all this extra revenue. Travis runs a dedicated route with dedicated appointment times. And 57 mile an hour works to hit all these. He's never late. Trav runs 100,000 miles a year. He makes right around $100,000. he's got benefits. I mean, he does very well as a company driver.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, I'll bet you all these guys that are ragging on him right now, they'd be hard pressed to do as well as he's doing. But when you look at that, you take that 100,000 miles a year, he works 50 weeks. That's 2,000 miles, right, a week, right around there, divided by 5.5. You're running, 400 miles a day? Do you really have to run 75 mile an hour to get 400 miles in a day in?
Exactly. Yeah.
And so who's affecting rates negatively? These guys running 75 mile an hour, or Trav out there running 57 mile an hour? And the other part of this is, this guy posted this right after that big accident that happened out in Arkansas, where that big truck pile up out there that killed 3-4 people.
Yep.
So this stuff is just getting ridiculous. And then the one guy makes a statement: there's no maintenance savings in slowing down. A tire at 55 mile an hour wears the same at 65. I was like, are you freaking kidding? This is what we're dealing with, man. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. So I expect in this downturn that we're going to wash out a lot of these guys that I don't know. I just don't get it.
Let's think about this for just a second. I did some math the other day on a truck going from 5 miles to the gallon to 6 miles to the gallon with today's fuel price. Going from 5 to 6, the savings was $25,000. That's insane. Now, what if you went from 5 to 10? I may do the math here in a little bit because it doesn't take long. It has to be just an incredible number.
Go 5 to 10 and then add in a 39% savings on your maintenance cost.
Yes, yeah.
On top of the fuel savings. And now tell me who's the smart one.
Well, and let's
even if
put
that's 20% savings, Joel, think about it. That's a big number. A lot of people won't be able to believe that maintenance number. But even if you back it down to 20%,
right?
It's
still huge.
Obviously, that's going to depend on age of the truck and so forth. And so there's always some caveats to that. That's not a that's a sliding scale, that maintenance cost thing.
Sure, sure.
But still, even at 20, right? Which I anyone should be able to believe, right?
Yeah.
I believe that. Tires in particular, realize how much more friction, the coefficient of friction of the tire at 75 as opposed to one at 57.
This is exactly. I was going to break it down for this guy, talking about how you have the increase in rolling resistance. It's a linear path, and it takes more horsepower to run at higher speed. Therefore, you're increasing torque. And then when you apply to blah, blah, blah. And I was looking at it, and I go, you know what? If that guy really believes, I am not going to waste my time trying to break it down that if you slow down, your tires actually last longer. It's just mind-boggling that these guys...
Anyway.
Let's take it a step further and let's look at who really benefits from either scenario, driving faster or driving slower. So when we drive fast, absolutely at today's prices between fuel and maintenance, and the other thing you have to remember, if something breaks on your truck, you may not be able to get the part anymore. That's another issue you should be thinking about. Tires are harder to find. You want to make sure yours last as long as they can. So under the scenario of, I'm just going to drive as fast as I can because that's how I make more money. Well, first off, you don't. So, whether you want to admit that or not, you just don't. We could prove it to you all day long. So you're not really benefiting from going faster. Let's see who does benefit. Does the company maybe you're leased to or the company you're moving freight from, do they benefit from you driving faster? Hell no, because you have to charge them more to make a profit. Does the general public benefit? Hell no, because inflation's going through the roof and transportation is a part of everything. The motoring public also doesn't benefit from trucks running around like idiots at 80 miles an hour, safety-wise. So who benefits here? I can think of two big entities that benefit. The oil companies.
Big oil companies.
Big oil companies certainly do. And guess who else? The government. Fuel tax.
Yeah.
The more fuel you burn to do your job, the more money the government makes too.
Your mechanic will probably love you too because you're going to be in the shop a lot more often, whether you believe that or not. That's just a fact.
Yeah.
People are going to be in the shop way more often. So if you go ask your mechanic, does it make any sense to slow down? He's probably going to tell you no. I mean, if I was a mechanic, I would want him out there running 80 mile an hour.
Right.
So it's crazy.
If you do the math, and again, there are probably formulas for this, but the weight of the truck is suspended. You've got springs, you've got dampers, shock absorbers, bushings, everything. So when you hit that bump, it's 70. So you have that mass, it's not moving. And that suspension takes that up, and it still has that same weight on it. And there's probably some crazy acceleration formula you can use or something. But the wear on every one of those bits, whenever it hits that same bump that you're going to hit it at 55 or 57, at 70. So you could be right on that 30% thing. That sounds so high to me. But it's everything. You're going to wear shocks out faster. You're going to wear brakes out a lot faster. You're turning that speed that you just that speed that you just burn fuel to make is now going to just turn into heat in your brakes whenever you go to slow the thing down. So there's more energy wasted. It's a big deal. And then I can't go on enough about Aerodrag. Aero's my world, and I love that who was it posted finally the race car analogy in trucking. I think you posted that, Joel.
NACFE, yeah, NACFE put that out there, and I just heard it. Yeah.
But I've been saying for years the same shit. Aerodrag is exponential. It's exponential, meaning that it goes up by a power. It doesn't go up by, okay, I'm only going 10% faster, so I'm going to have 10% more Aerodrag. It doesn't work that way. It goes up by a power. Yeah.
Yeah, and the parasitic drag in the powertrain is also exponential. And we talked about this, John. So when you start to think about that 30 or 39%, when you just take into account the dynamics you talked about in the suspension, and then you think about the exponential increases as speed increases, it's not hard to get to a 30% reduction by backing your speed down 10 mile an hour in maintenance costs with today's modern engines, especially in the emission system. We know what increased piston speed does to particulate. We know when we slow that piston speed down, particulate almost disappears. So it's definitely not hard to get there on a modern truck if we manage our speed to reduce our maintenance costs significantly. And, people out there, it don't make no difference. They're nuts.
Hey, Matt did the math for me on the fuel thing. The difference between a truck getting 5 miles to the gallon and a truck getting 10 miles to the gallon on 120,000 miles a year, it's $72,000.
That's crazy. Yeah.
$72,000. So tell me how you're going to make that up by going faster.
So here's the example the guy used. He said, well, I could make an extra $2,000 a week going faster. Okay, that's a top line. That's a top line number. So by the time he takes all of his expenses and stuff out, where's he at? And even his top line number is just barely more than the bottom line number of the savings of the fuel. So I mean,
it's a small percentage. That extra $2,000 he made. You consumed way more than that. Yeah,
it just absolutely nuts. Yep.
Instead of losing $70,000, he lost 65. Maybe, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, again, I don't want to say cool. Maybe it's cool. But there is an option now, right? So 5.5 mile per gallon trucks or 6 mile per gallon trucks are still really common, but there never really was a viable off the shelf option. And now you've probably got 2 solid ones. You could do it at Volvo, or you could do it, or you can do it at Freightliner now too. I mean, you could go buy an off the shelf truck that's going to be solidly in the 9s.
Yeah.
I mean, if you get Kim and Al to slow down a little bit, they'll probably be in the 9s tomorrow. Take a loose bumper off and go down to 57. They'll be midnight
in the 10.
So yeah,
exactly. I mean, even with the big bumper on the front, when a brand new truck pulling the weight they were pulling to come in at they just missed it. It's like 7.9, I think they ended up for the week. Pretty damn impressive, really, for what they have going on there. And it's only going to get better as that engine breaks in. So you wouldn't surprise me if we get a solid 8.5 mile a gallon truck with a bunch of stuff hanging on it.
Yeah,
that's crazy to me. That's awesome. So pretty cool.
But yeah, again, you have the option now. You can do it. Again, the new trucks are expensive. I realize it's probably it's going to take a while to get that back. But I don't know why you wouldn't. as much as I love fancy trucks, I do. I like looking at them at shows. I like to watch them drag race and stuff. There's cool stuff you could do with them, but that's where they belong. They don't need to be out working.
Yeah, I always
maintenance costs. I just changed my disc pads on the steer axle at 1,079,000 miles. I just put new disc pads.
Oh, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it is.
I had to buy a new caliper because when he pulled I thought I had something going on because when I rotated the tires a few weeks earlier, I noticed the right hand disc pad was disappearing quicker than the left hand one. So I said I might have something going on the right front there. But when he pulled the disc pad out, the piston popped out of the caliper. So $1,250, $1420 for a new caliper, but at 1,079,000, I'm not complaining. So, yeah. And
awesome. That's pretty incredible.
Mostly I run 62. Even in 80 mile an hour Texas, I ran 62, and I didn't get rear-ended.
Imagine that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Hey, I'm going to let everybody know that we haven't really asked for calls today. Paul, I'm going to cut you loose. I'll ask for them right now. We'll probably wrap this up here in a couple minutes unless we start getting some calls. But if you want to jump in, we'll hang out for a little bit in case you have some questions or a comment or anything you want to talk about. We'll wait a couple minutes here. 855-950-3835. Anybody have anything else they want to throw out while we're waiting on a call or two?
No,
hey, I drove my my Lexus down to the mod center down in Virginia from Ohio the other day, and we were talking about traffic. Nobody's slowing down. Of course, everybody's running 80 mile an hour. So I wound that thing up and set the cruise and was running with traffic right around that 80 mile an hour mark. And that car had almost 30 miles a gallon running 80 mile an hour through the hills of West Virginia. I was impressed. That was pretty damn cool.
That's impressive. Yeah,
that is impressive.
Yeah, so I've been playing I've been driving quite a bit. I've done 2 events at Watkins Glen in the last 3 weeks. I've been driving up there, and you know that road, Joel. Like it's 99 basically for me the whole way up. Through Williamsport, and it's a gorgeous drive. So I bought and don't accuse me of spoiling my kids, but when my son went to college, he needed a reliable-ish ride, and I found this 1 Series BMW for like $8,000. And it's a 128. It's not the turbo fancy one. It's just a little coupe. It's a light little car. They've all grown so much. And it's got the little 2.8 liter straight 6 in it, or 3 liter straight 6, and it's a manual. So I've been playing the fuel mileage game. So it was sitting here at the shop. I hadn't been running it. I've been driving either my Dodge that gets over 20 if I drive it properly, and that was better than my Rover that gets 12. But I've got all these trips coming up. I'm like, well, the BMW's here because he bought his own car, graduated from college, has a job, bought a car, gave this back to me. So I'm like, I'm going to get that dusted off, get it inspected, change the oil, give it a quick going over, and I'll start running that around this summer. And I've been playing the fuel mileage game. It's a manual, so I shift. I pull out in first, go straight to second, then I go 4-6, and the thing never goes over 2,000 RPM. And I got 38 miles to the gallon on the last trip to Washington, and running 65. Yeah, just playing around with short shifting, and it's a
pretty cool. Yeah,
if I drive it fast, it won't do that, but it's just a hoot. Yeah.
Hey,
so it's a fun little thing, little personal car.
It's actually pretty incredible about that. The smart car I had with a 700cc 3-cylinder engine, and we know how tiny and light that thing is. You struggled to get 40 out of that thing.
I'm dying to do a 40-mile tank. I'm not sure what it's going to take to do that. I'm going to start taping up the grill and stuff, I think. And with that. But so this engine, that BMW is called an N54, and I'm not that I'm a huge BMW guy. I like them. I'm not a big, and I didn't know about this when I bought this car. It has no throttle butterflies, and it's a technology that they adapted from their diesels to keep pumping losses down. So all acceleration, whenever you hit the throttle, they're all electronic fly-by-wire nowadays. It's got a variable valve lift on the intake. So all it does is limits the lift on the intake. So it's sitting there idling, it's barely opening the intake valves.
That is pretty cool. Yeah, that's awesome.
So you pull the intake off, it's the same intake they used on their diesels in Europe. It's exactly the same.
Huh.
I'm like, I've never had it off, but I looked, I'm like, where's the throttle body? I'm like, it doesn't matter.
That's a pretty slick idea. That is awesome.
Yeah,
and the thing makes so much torque for a gasoline engine. Like you could drive it around and never go over 2,000 RPM. It's a torquey little straight six, and I love that sound from the straight six and the infrastructure. It's just fun to drive. Neat little car. Yeah, I'm really impressed with the technology. And it's a 2008. It's not new by any means. Yeah.
See, John, now you're going to have me out shopping. that is slick as vehicle. That is slick. Well, come on, we got a variable valve. I got to have something like that. Come on. Oh shoot!
Yeah, they call it Valvetronic. It's called. Google it. It's really cool. Engineering has a really cool little thing on it. Yeah,
that is.
Yeah,
cool.
It definitely will. That sounds pretty cool.
All right.
Yeah.
Hey, the calls are starting to come in. Let's grab some and see what everybody else wants to talk about. We're off to South Dakota. Jamie, welcome to the program.
Morning. So I've got a new Mac. I talked to you a little while ago about it. With it might burn and dep, and they put too much frame under it. I got a 233-inch wheelbase, but I hear everybody else talking about their good mileage, and I'm struggling to get in the mid-7s. I write it down every night, and my last trip from South Dakota to California and back, I got 7.2, running 60 miles an hour.
Gotcha. And what are the specs on this truck?
55, 1850, overdrive, M drive, and 247.
And it's overdrive and not direct, and it is the HE.
Yeah, the turbo compound. Yep.
Yeah, the thing that I'm thinking is that there's got to be some parameter things going on here. That long wheelbase, the gap between the truck and the trailer, will be a very difficult thing to overcome. Part of the reason the new Volvos and Macs do so well when we spec them right, we have that tight gap, is that we can really lay the horsepower down when it's not required. And when you have a big gap, you are going to require more horsepower to drag that thing through the wind. So that's going to be problematic. Do you have your own trailer, or are you pulling company trailers?
I'm pulling company now. I'm looking for one on my own, but they're just so expensive. I just think they're
they are right now. That's exactly right. Yeah, the trailer market's a little goofy right now. When you get to that point where you're pulling your own trailer, obviously you're going to be looking at putting a nose cone or something on the front of that to help close that gap up. They have the little wings that you can also buy. I hear they're pretty expensive. I don't know much about them to help close that gap, but the best laid out truck in the world, spec mechanically, when you have that gap, that really complicates things. There are probably some things that can be done as far as parameters go, and I know Mac just released some updated parameters. I'm not sure if they're out to the dealer yet. That's something that we would have to look at. If you find me on Facebook, send me a private message with your VIN number, and I'll see if I can look at it and tell what you've got going on parameter wise. A lot of times, especially with the 247, which is what I consider kind of a tweener ratio. It's not really downsped, and it's not really traditional. The parameters get a little complicated on that to get it right, and I'd be interested to see what you have going on as far as shift logic and parameters. I'm assuming we can probably tweak that a little bit, possibly, but I need to see what you've got going on first. And I've got 4 or 5 people in line in front of you. So when you send this, it may take me a little bit to get to it, but I'll get to it as quick as I can. I just finished up with the Hemersons getting their truck straight. I've got a guy down in Ashland, Ohio. I'm going to get him straight, and then I've got another guy out of South Dakota that I got to get him straight as well. So send it over, and I'll see what I can do with it.
All right, thank you. You guys have
In South Dakota, you got to hook him up with Jamie, other Jamie. Right?
Yeah, Jamie Hagan. That's probably where we'll get him in there. But I need to see what he has going on so I can give him a little bit of direction because there's been some updates to that 247 logic. And when you get into some hills, a lot of times it'll pull the traditional way that they were doing it. It would pull down a little bit too far. The truck would fall on its face, and then it would struggle to recover. You'd lose a ton of speed on the hill, and then you'd have to make it up on the backside, and it was killing guys' fuel mileage. So there's some tweaks going on with that shift logic that we need to address.
Why did I think that Jamie lived in Michigan?
He is in Michigan now, originally from, I think, Aberdeen, up in that area. So he's in Michigan now, but was originally from South Dakota. And he deals with one of the dealers up there in South Dakota. And my understanding, and I haven't visited these people personally, Jamie's used them for a while. My understanding is they've got a pretty good handle on some of the shift logic stuff. So that's where I'll probably end up directing him, but I just want to make sure what he's got going on first so I can give him a heads up before he walks into the dealer so he's not going in there blind.
Got it. All right. Let's grab another call. Let's go to Wisconsin. Jeremy, welcome to the program.
Hi, I just want to thank you guys. I've been listening to you guys for 3 years and absolutely love the Friday technology. I have a 2021 Freightliner Cascadia, and I'm looking to put solar up on the roof. And I was just wondering if there was a company out there that makes a solar panel that's kind of in the shape of the style lines, I guess, up there that would fit kind of in that U shape that's on the top of the truck, or are they all the square ones?
I think Merlin Solar is actually making a custom fit panel for the Freightliner. They are designing me a custom fit panel for my new build. So I do know they do custom fit stuff, and I believe because Nussbaum is a big customer of theirs, and they run mostly Freightliners. I believe that they do have some custom fit panels already in production for that truck.
Okay. Has anyone looked at possibly putting solar on the hood?
Yeah, I've actually got a couple trucks with solar on the hood, and my next build will have solar on the hood.
Okay.
So I've got it on the hood and on the roof. So I think I'm total wattage on the roof cap. I think is around 600 watts, and I think we can pick up another 300 on the hood. So we're right around 900. And you have to remember the solar is there to extend and maintain the life of the battery over time. You're not going to get a huge extension. Like if you have an EAPU, you're not going to go from 7 or 8 hours to 15 hours just because you put the solar up there. What it will do is when you have new batteries in, the new batteries will maintain their performance right out until the very end, until they die. So instead of in 2 years, the battery performance slowly drops off, and you start with a brand new set of batteries, you get 8 to 10 hours, and by that second year, you're down to 6 hours, and things aren't going so well, and people are complaining that the solar really helps to maintain that constant performance over the life of the battery.
Joel, 900 watts on a tractor, that's pretty impressive. That's quite a bit. Charging from that amount of space. And like you said, the biggest benefit is how well it helps condition your batteries over time. The other benefit, though, 900 watts, although it's not going to do a whole lot for your cooling capabilities, 900 watts provides you a lot of power for a lot of other stuff.
Right. And, when you get in the yard and you park the truck for a couple days, you don't have to worry about shutting everything off. And it just does a really good job. One thing that Nussbaum found when they ran their EAPUs without solar panels, and then they would fire the truck up in the morning with that big alternator to put the charge back into batteries, they were pulling like a crazy amount, like 16 horsepower through that big alternator to charge the battery. And then when they had the solar on there, and this was all after a 34-hour break, they cut that horsepower draw in half, and it took like half the time to bring them back up to full. So they were thinking that just on the fuel savings alone, based on that big horsepower draw through that alternator, that paid for the solar panel all by itself without even bringing in the extended life of the batteries.
Nice. Hey, it sounds like you know some people over at Merlin. I may need to get an introduction from you. If they do custom, that's the other thing that's held me back from trying to put much solar on my coach. Believe it or not, even though I've got 45 feet and, a flat roof up there, I have almost no room. By the time you figure I have 3 air conditioners up there, I have multiple vents. I've put cellular antennas up there, external antennas. I just really don't have a lot of room, and it's all choppy. So if they could actually do some custom stuff, that'd be very cool.
Yeah, I will. I'll get you hooked up with them, and I'm sure they'd be more than happy to come out and take a look at things. And get you set up.
Good. All right, let's grab another call. Let's go to Michigan. Larry, welcome to the program.
How are you today?
Good. What's on your mind?
So, I have a dedicated run. It starts in Illinois, finishes in Michigan, turn around and go back. I've slowed down to 57 miles an hour. Piss a whole lot of people off. And I slowed down from 67 to 57. My lifetime average on this truck, which is only a year old, was 791. Now my 30-day average is 918.
Wow.
Holy crap.
Nice.
Yeah.
And my fuel surcharge, I usually end up with about $360 a week. My fuel surcharge is higher than my fuel cost.
Awesome.
Man.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, it does cost me an hour and a half longer to make the run, and it forces me into a half-hour break. So we're looking at 2 hours each day longer.
Okay.
But it's a dedicated run.
Right.
Now, if I get into a hurry, I can always speed up.
Yeah.
Yes, it's going to cost me money to speed up, but I can always do it.
It's always an option. Exactly. Right.
Right.
The other thing about the whole speed debate, and I know this is going to piss a lot of people off. So we know that there's some pretty major fuel savings, and we understand that there's some maintenance savings going on here. But it really is a huge factor in safety. And this new camera that we have installed in the truck, this driver eye system, has really opened my eyes as to what impact speed has when you're trying to manage your safety gap. And in the past we've always looked at that gap as distance. Well, distance doesn't really work. It has to be time because speed varies, and it's almost impossible for a driver to estimate the time on that gap. And we have some radar systems in the truck now that does a pretty good job. So I've been experimenting here, and when I run between 57 and 62, I can score perfect on my gap. It's at 4+ seconds constantly, and it's perfect. Once I start to get between 62 and 68, that gap generally has fallen to 3.8. My score's still pretty high. Once I get north of 70 mile an hour, things just go off the rails. The score collapses. The other day, I ran just a smidge over 70 from Atlanta down to Augusta, Georgia, and my safety score was pretty embarrassing. I mean, I didn't even meet the minimum threshold. It was like 770. But from the driver's point of view, I thought I was doing a pretty good job at maintaining my gap, you know, and we see it as distance. And regardless if traffic's 55 or 70, we typically maintain that same distance. Well, at 70, you need more time. And so that gap has to change. And we, as drivers, we don't connect that in our head. And it was just amazing. I mean, I was down to like 3.1 seconds on my gap, and, you know, we were looking for +4 to actually be safe. And think about the accident out in Arkansas where you had all these trucks run over each other. I'll guarantee you, if we had a 4+ second gap on that accident doesn't happen.
Right.
Just doesn't happen.
Yeah. You know, here's something else. Joel, I have to imagine when you were doing the 57 to 62 and you get a perfect score, you didn't even really have to work at it. That was just your natural driving, and you were maintaining a gap that you're used to maintaining, and that gap at that speed works, and you get a perfect score. My guess is when you were up over 70, if you were trying to improve your score, which you should be because you know you're unsafe at this point, but I'll bet the attempt to manage that gap is really stressful.
It is. It's extremely stressful trying to figure out, you know, how do I make, I mean, it's like you're hyper aware of everything that's going on, and you got the adrenaline running, and you know what happens when you have adrenaline running in your body. Yeah, it kind of wakes you up, but over time it really starts to screw with you. And especially mentally at the end of the day, when you're running that fast, if you're actually concerned about safety and maintaining that gap, it's a hell of a lot of work.
Yeah.
And so now this goes back to all the guys that are claiming how wonderful speed is for the transportation industry. Not only is that fast truck driving the rates down for everybody else because we're increasing capacity, but we're also driving insurance rates up for the rest of the industry because our safety is shit.
Yep.
So, gee, thanks, guys. You know what I mean? You're putting everybody out of business. Great.
Let's not forget, you know, we're talking every day when I read the headlines, I keep seeing these comparisons to the early 80s, the fuel crisis of the 70s. Remember what happened back then? We ended up with a 55-mile-an-hour national speed limit.
You know, and I brought this up, I think, last time we talked. I can remember when I started that any time that we had a change in capacity that was playing with rates or fuel prices spike, all the big fleets, the first thing they'd done was slow down. And everybody kind of followed suit. That was just normal. It's like people understood business a little bit better back then. They weren't this one-track focus of, I got to run 75 because that's what I feel like is best. We don't do that anymore. I mean, everybody's still running like crazy, even at, you know, the crazy high fuel prices, and this is all going to blow up in our face. And there's going to be a huge calling of these guys that aren't going to slow down. They refuse to, or they think they're making all this extra money. There's going to be a big washout coming. I'm sure of it.
Well, you know,
that'll take care of itself.
I can't believe the big companies haven't cut their trucks back yet.
No,
well, here's what they're thinking, and then I'll tell you what the thought process here is, because my brother's struggling with this right now. We're expecting the washout to happen, and they're trying to attract these drivers to come drive for them. And if you start to slow your trucks down before you put drivers in the seat here, you're going to lose out on a recruiting opportunity. So they're waiting for the washout. Once we get drivers back into seats, I think you're going to see, and I think this is why the ATA is supporting the speed limit reduction, because now they can say, well, the government made us do it. They don't have to go back to the employees and say, we're slowing your truck down. So they know exactly what's going on here. There's going to be a washout. They're going to pick up a bunch of former owner-operators as company drivers. The government's going to come in and slow the trucks down to 65. Everybody's going to be happy. That's what's going to happen.
Let's think about
with
this.
Current,
go ahead, John.
Think about technology. Technology, you know, again, I'll go and tech geeking out here, though. Okay, slowing trucks down back in 1980 when you had your 300 Cummins. It was already pretty anemic and didn't really run all that well.
Yeah.
And you're just driving it around flat out everywhere and probably burned more fuel going slow. Maybe not more, but it was not a big deal. But with current technology, just think. the way it can be programmed, I'm just talking about efficiency here. You know, you can get to a whole bunch of other arguments about a bunch of trucks going exactly the same speed and all that other crap. You know, there are arguments against it there, but with the downsped technologies and the transmission technologies and the ability for the programming and the transmission shift points and so forth, slowing trucks down right now can save a shit ton of fuel, as we see, right? So, done properly to the correct equipment. I mean, we need to obsolete some people's stuff, it happens eventually. Your stuff gets obsoleted. It's okay. You get different stuff and you make more money with it. It's just the way it works. But it's really not the devil that everybody thinks it is. I'm actually I don't want to say excited about it, but it really could make a huge difference.
Well,
but the other thing I think with the new technologies coming in with the electric trucks, energy management becomes even more critical because the batteries aren't as energy dense, obviously, as diesel fuel is. So I think this also plays into that. They're kind of looking at this. They're looking at the economics of things. The big fleets want to slow the trucks down, but they know they can't because of the hiring issue. And the government, I think, sees the electric trucks coming in, and they know they have to manage that energy a little closer. So the slower speed limits from the government's point of view, without bringing the safety part into it, they're being pressured, I think, from the electric truck people and from the big fleets to go ahead and do this. And it does make some sense. There's no doubt.
John, you mentioned, speed limiting on a 300 Cummins. Does anybody ever remember driving a truck with a mechanical governor? That sucked.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Remember how Mac used to do it? Mac used to just put a 517 rear end gear in it, and as fast as you could go was 55.
Well, speaking of that,
with your old.
Speaking of that, so imagine this today. I've told this story many times. The first truck I bought that ever taught me about fuel economy and got me paying attention to it was that Volvo I bought from Swift. It was almost brand new when I bought it. But at that time, Swift had a 57 mile an hour speed limit. Those trucks were governed at 57 for Swift in the early 90s. And that's it. That's as fast as that truck would go. And even when you took the electronic speed limiter off, there wasn't much faster that it would go because it was kind of gear bound. And it had an RPM restriction, so that truck was just not going to go 65 no matter what you did to it.
Which is so different from what's capable today, right? So you're going to limit speed, not just RPM. You can do it all electronically. So there's not. It's not like it was then, right? So they just gear for that for the most part. They'd limit the RPM to 1800 or whatever, and then gear it to go 65 at 1800, and it was done.
Right.
So now it's a whole different world. It really is. It's not going to be like it was then.
Well,
it could be great for efficiency.
Joel, go.
To John's point here, what we're talking about real quick is we're not just limiting the RPM. So as we have more gears available at highway speed, obviously we want to cruise in like a direct or possibly even an overdrive when we're light. But now we're bringing this underdrive into play, and when we do this electronically, we can give underdrive some more RPM and, get us up in the torque range because of the torque multiplication, and the performance of the truck remains very strong. And that's really what we're playing with in iTorque here. It gives us great efficiency when we're light. It gives us really excellent pulling power when we're heavy, because we can allow or adjust RPM to work with that particular underdrive gear at a highway speed, something we've never been able to do in the past. And it definitely makes a difference on how that truck drives and the driver's perception of the truck.
Swift being, governed at 57 back then, and they were a huge company back then. Joel, what do you think is it your brother or your brother-in-law that runs the...
Brother.
What do you think your brother would say if you went to him and said, hey, what do you think would happen if we governed our trucks at 57 right now?
Well, we've done that in the past. We were a 60 mile an hour fleet for a long, long time. And then as we started to grow and we had to make deliveries further out, we ended up starting to increase our speed to accommodate a customer. Then we started to add trucks, and then we got into a recruiting situation where we had to speed them up. So right now, if he had to cut him back to 57, he would say, I just need to close the doors up because all my drivers are going to quit. That's what would happen at this point. But as the economy tightens up and freight tightens up and jobs become a little more scarce, it will get to the point again where we can slow the trucks down and the drivers will be all for it because they're going to want a job because they just can't go any place and, walk in and start the next day $100,000 a year job driving a truck. That's going to go away if the economy slows down to the point we think it's going to slow down. For the most part, that's going to be very difficult to do.
I wonder, the system that I came up with when I had drivers and, speed, and I had the same issues. I couldn't just tell everybody you're going to go 57 because it would have been a recruiting nightmare for me. So I had to play that game. But the system that I came up with, I actually thought it was kind of brilliant. Might be perfect for a company your size. And you guys get this. We know the math. We know that if you slow a truck down 1 mile per hour, on average, you'll pick up 1/10 of a mile per gallon. We know what that means at today's price. So the system that I created was, at the time, the trucks were kind of sort of governed. But, my trucks would run 68, 70 miles an hour or so. And I went to the drivers and I said, look, here's the deal. You can leave your truck just the way it is. You want to run 70 like it is now, you just leave it that way, you run 70, no problem. But I'll give you the choice. You pick a speed, and whatever speed you want to govern the truck at, we'll do that. Slower, not faster, obviously, but if you're willing to govern the truck at a slower speed, you pick the speed, and then I'll tell you what your bonus is going to be. You don't have to reach a certain fuel mileage number because that's on me. There's too many other factors. You just need to commit to driving this speed instead. And if you'll do that, here's the bonus I'll pay you.
So here's what we're working on, very similar. All the new downsped Volvos have 3 operating modes in the transmission. We have EE, which is extra efficiency. We have E, which is economy, and P, which is performance. And what we want to do is just take their base pay, and then we are going to look at the number of miles they ran in each mode. So if you're running an EE, we're going to pay you 75 cents a mile. You run an E, you're going to make like 68. And if you run in P, you're going to make 50 cents a mile. And that's how we want to pay our guys. Yep. They know right up front their decision, how it's going to impact their paycheck without having to worry about Mother Nature, without having to worry about terrain, the weight of the load, anything. Their entire paycheck is going to be based on the decision they make on which button they press on the dash.
That's how I did mine.
So I think, I think that's the way to go. I think there's no doubt about it. It makes a lot of sense. That's a great idea.
Yeah, there's no risk for the driver.
It puts the driver completely in control of their paycheck.
Right.
So, absolutely.
Yep, worked really well for me. All right, let's grab another call. Let's go to Wisconsin. Ray, welcome to the program.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Good. What's on your
mind? Joel, a couple weeks ago, you guys are going. Well, a couple weeks ago, Joel was talking about going to hourly pay for drivers and stuff. I just didn't think that would ever happen, but I'm doing it now. This whole last couple of weeks, we're hourly employees. And actually, my pay increased.
Good.
By going hourly. So I was just like dumbfounded on it. But, while you're on drive line, you get paid a different rate than you're on duty rate. They got 2 different rates. But it is, I normally had to work 6 days to get the same amount of pay I'm getting in 5 days now.
Now let's think about something here. And I know we're not there yet, and this isn't always perfect when companies are going to do this, but when you think about this, we could make this where, and we already know, you went hourly, you made more money. The fact that you made more money seems like we'd have to believe that the company made less, but that's not true. If we go to hourly and we get drivers to not care about how fast they're driving, with today's fuel prices, you could make more money, and so could the company.
So to the company,
Everybody, yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. All week, last couple weeks, we were governed at 65, but I took it down to 60
Yeah,
and
perfect.
just moved over the right lane, and that's just relaxing, and it's nice and easy, and I put in just as many miles,
Yep.
but
Yes.
I'm getting paid more.
Perfect.
Awesome. Yeah, that is awesome. That's the point I've been trying to make for several years. I mean, even internally in Ploger, we have these discussions, and sometimes I get a little spirited about how this actually works and what it does to the bottom line, and so the big thing that we see, one of the big problems when you roll out an hourly pay package and you explain to the driver that they could make more money, the first thing they think is, well, this is some gimmick or you're trying to screw me somehow. And that it really becomes a problem trying to explain this to the driver. Look, you're going to do better and we're going to do better. And they're scratching their head going, how is that possible? And why isn't everybody doing this? I think this is, you're trying to trick me somehow. And it becomes
so much easier.
Here's how
it's easier for them too on the settlement statement. It's so much easier for them. They don't have to go through and figure out how many miles you put in, what if you were on detention time or what was happening. I mean, they just have to look at your logbook and figure it out.
Here's how it's
done.
Yeah, no doubt.
Here's how it's possible that the driver can make more money, the company can make more money, and the consumer can end up with lower prices at the store, is because we're taking the profit away from the big oil companies.
You're shifting that money around. That's exactly what you're doing. You're taking it away from the big oil company, and you're taking it away from the guy that runs the shop, and you're putting it back into the driver pay and back into the company. That you're 100% right. Absolutely.
I know. I was just surprised all week. This week, averaging, by the morning time you look at you can look at your pay each day. You can, from midnight, they project it out for the next day right away. I'm averaging $450 to $500 a day that I'm making.
Thanks.
Excellent.
Thanks.
It's just so much easier to figure, and I don't have to keep track of all the other stuff to make sure I got paid. It's easier on everybody.
You know what?
Yeah, the thing that I always hated about like detention time when you're on mile and you go into a place and you have to do detention. You lay down to take a nap while they're loading your trailer and you forget to send the detention notice and the detention call, and in the office is like, why didn't you send this? And yada, yada, yada. Yeah, just do away with it all. I mean, it's a pain in the ass, and going to hourly just fixes all that.
You know what? I also swear I could tell that Ray's voice sounded less stressed.
Well, I was thinking about that with all our biometrics and stuff, and you've done studies on this. We've discussed before the stress level at the speeds, and Joel just gave his whole driver rating. You were working harder to drive that speed, and you still ended up with a lousy number on your 70-mile-an-hour trip. And I was thinking about your stepson. And the 400 miles a day at that speed, he's got a nice life, man. That's just 2,000 a week.
Dude, at his age, he's killing it. I mean, I wish I would have known back then, what I know now. He's just absolutely killing it. Yeah. I mean, it's like, geez.
He gets home and, he can be with his significant others and whatever and be happy and not be stressed. And, he's probably healthy. And there are many benefits for sure.
Hey, Joel.
So this is, me talking about going slow from the racer here.
Yeah. Hey, Joel, do you have one of the Garmin watches with the instant stress reading on it?
I do not.
I'm going to send you one.
I should put. Awesome.
I'm gonna
I'd love to see this when I'm running different speeds and stuff. How this works? That would be awesome.
Yeah, I just thought about that.
You'll be addicted. It's a blast.
Yeah, you're a numbers geek and you're already doing this kind of stuff. Let's add that true real life measurement in there. I'll send you the new diesel version, and you can then track the stress level at different speeds.
Does it have a happy meter on it?
Yeah.
I know when I get into my purple truck, my happy meter is going to be off the chart, right?
That's right.
Well, get some data now on the old truck, and then you could overlay it.
Yeah, there you go. We're probably not going to want to see that data, but yeah, no, that would be awesome. That would be really cool.
Yeah. All right. Hey, let's grab another
call. Hey, guys, I need to bounce. I've got before we get another call, I've got to roll. So
okay.
I've got a customer about to pop in the shop here in 5 minutes, and we've managed to burn through an hour and 44 minutes already.
Yeah, we did. Without breaks. No commercials.
Yeah, so I will see you guys next week. I'll be able to be on, I believe. I'm going to be up in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin next week, but I should be able to free myself up on Friday.
Perfect.
John, real quick, are you going to be in Mid-Ohio anytime from mid-July to end of the month?
I don't have anything planned for Mid-Ohio.
Okay. I was going to say I was going to be home for a couple weeks during that time, and I thought if you were going to be in the area, I'd come down.
I'll let you know for sure anytime I head that way. Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
So
awesome.
Okay. Sounds good. Cool. All right. Hey, that's good. It's good to talk to everybody, and this was fun.
It is. Great show today.
I'll talk to you later.
Thanks.
All right.
All right. We're going to talk to Frank in Indiana. Welcome.
Thank you, guys. I've got a question for Joel about the longevity of the Volvos.
Mm-hmm.
I currently drive for a fleet. We are a 60-mile-per-hour governed fleet. They just started a lease purchase program. It's just a lease. You never end up having the opportunity to own the truck. One thing they talk about is the reason. They say that Volvo guarantees them a $50,000 trade-in if they send it back with 50,000 with 500,000 miles or less.
Okay.
I had asked them, it's like, well, what if I wanted to buy it? I'll give you the 50,000 at 500,000 miles. And they keep talking about, well, we have this software that does predictive maintenance. And one thing they talk about, something about plastic or resin gears for the air pump, something like that fails around 500,000. You've got a big maintenance and things like that. And to me, it sounds kind of hokey because it's like somebody is buying that truck after it gets traded in.
Sounds hokey to me, too. I can tell you in our fleet, I have had multiple D11s, D12s, D13s go past 1.5 million miles with no blow-by, don't burn oil. We've sold them here locally. The people are still running those trucks. When you look at the Volvo engine design, it's unique in the fact that it's kind of overbuilt for a 13-liter. It has very big connecting rods, a massive crankshaft. But the main part of the Volvo design is the longer connecting rod, which gives us a very constant piston speed through the stroke. When you have consistent piston speed, it reduces the frequency or the chance that you're going to have vibration, and vibration in the engine is what really can lead to increased maintenance issues. If it's an older engine, which it sounds like you're dealing with newer stuff, when they had the unit injectors, folks tend to have some problems with them just because we weren't re-torquing the injector hold down bolts and running the overhead often enough. If they're doing the recommended maintenance on it, that truck should go well over 1 million miles with no real major issues.
And
especially at the speed you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking about because we're, like I said, we're governed at 60. We're encouraged to drive even slower. Like I'm doing 56 right now going across Indiana. Awesome. My dash shows that for the last week I'm at 10.3. Awesome. Actual mileage, if I do 10 to paper, it's probably closer to like a 9.9, something like that. We've got either the 226 or the 216 rear ends. I don't know if the
man. If you can buy that truck, you ought to snag it because you're just not going to have maintenance as long as they have done the recommended maintenance.
and you continue to do the recommended maintenance at the speed you're operating in, the way that thing's geared, piston speed is nice and low. You're not going to have a lot of suspension issues for all the things that John covered as far as, as speed increase, we get differences in the dynamics of suspension wear. Absolutely, man. If you can pick one of those trucks up at the pricing that you're talking about, I would definitely do that.
And that's what I was thinking. If I could just get them to work with me, or if I can get with the dealer when we do some trade-ins. And, right now with fuel prices and interest rates, it's not really the time to do it. But I don't have any debt other than my house and the mortgage on a rent house I own. All my vehicles are paid off. I pay my credit cards off monthly. I'm pretty much set up to try doing something, but it's just a matter of having the right timing. But something interesting you mentioned, I was watching some YouTube videos about different engine, how they're made and stuff like that. You're talking about the connecting rod. By having that longer connecting rod, you're putting also less lateral force on the piston.
Yes. Way less side loading. That's correct.
Yeah, so you get less wear there. There's less friction. All of that equates to the better fuel economy.
It does help. There is no doubt. And as long as your gearing is optimized, and it sounds like what they've done is absolutely optimal to take advantage of that long connecting rod. You don't sound like you're in a hurry to have to get anywhere, and you're not worried about winning drag races up a hill. If I were you, I would snag one of these trucks as soon as you feel comfortable and you're in a position to do it. Absolutely. They sound like just an awesome buy here.
Yeah, they're great trucks. They dispatch us at 50 miles per hour, so usually we've got plenty of time. There's a few runs where we're tight and have to run it at 60, but most of the time I'm running 56, 58, and just letting everybody blow by me, and I'll laugh at them when they talk to me on the radio and just tell them, I'll always wipe my tears away with the Benjamins.
Hey,
there you go.
Hey,
yeah,
Frank,
you sound like you're doing exactly what I do.
Hey, Frank, just tell them it's too hard to count all your money while you're driving faster.
Exactly.
Oh, shoot. That's funny.
Well, I appreciate the input, guys. Y'all have a good weekend.
All right. Thanks.
Absolutely.
For the call.
You too.
We're going to grab one more call, and then we're going to wrap this up for today. Gary in Pennsylvania, you get the final word for the week.
Oh, it's my lucky day, huh?
Yeah.
Hey, John. Hey, John. I don't know if you remember me. I worked at NEP.
John left us.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, he knows who I am. I have a question. I bought an old truck. I'm old. I'm going to retire here shortly. It's kind of a toy rather than anything. It's a 97 FLB with a N14 Cummins 370 electronic. It's got 10-speed Meritor with Meritor 390 rears. Now, fuel mileage isn't a top priority, but I would like to do the best that I could do with what I got. What speed am I going to run that thing at?
55.
What RPMs, I should say. Yeah, with 390s, that's what I was thinking.
This is and I don't even mind the 390s. Actually, the truck you just described, an FLD with an N14, might be one of the most practical trucks ever built. I mean, nothing fancy, nothing to get excited about, but just drop dead practical. I think the FLD was probably one of the most solid trucks Freightliner ever built. I'm not a big fan of Freightliner's quality and their cabs, but the FLD was a solid truck.
Okay, now
inside and out. The N14.
You're saying D.
Oh, go ahead.
You're saying D, and I'm saying D as in boy.
Oh,
which is a cab over.
FLB.
They made from 94 to 98. They made cab overs in FLB.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know much about that one. Okay, the FLD is the one that to me is just like
basically an FLD with a. It's basically an FLD. I mean, everything's the same inside. It looks like an FLD.
Okay.
other than there's no hood there.
Okay,
Other than
then-
there's no hood there.
Yeah, then my guess would be it's that same pretty solid body quality that Freightliner isn't really known for, but in that truck they managed to pull it off. I really like that truck.
Yeah.
I first off, I wouldn't even consider messing with the gears. You said this is kind of a toy more than anything. I wouldn't change gears.
Yeah.
If you want to improve fuel economy, there's 10 other ways we could do it a whole lot cheaper on that truck. I'd leave the 390s, and it'll run up to 65 pretty comfortably. With that N14, it'll do 70, and you're still really not that far out of your RPM range, honestly, for an N14.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was right around, like 62 was about 1450, I think. I drove it a couple weeks ago and took it to a shop. And that, I mean, at 1450, I think I would do okay.
Oh, you do fantastic. That's right. This is actually a pretty nice spec truck. I wouldn't mess with those gears. 370s might give you a little more, headroom, but I would leave the 390s. If you want to get fuel mileage, like I said, there's 10 other things you could do, but that's just going to be a good, solid truck.
Okay. All right. That's all I had.
All right.
Unless you can fix this oil burning ISX I got.
Well,
I've talked to you before about this. Oh, man. I mean, it's a good truck, but 2 gallons a week for 3,000 miles. But my oil samples are good.
What year is it?
14.
So, well, here's one of the things. Let me address this. When you get a truck that burns a lot of oil, your oil samples get better because you're putting so much clean
put enough oil in it. Yeah.
Right. I'm not changing it because in 2 months' time, when I at my 20,000 miles, I put 16 gallons in it.
I was just going to say,
So,
you are changing it. You just have a different method of changing it. You just change it 1 gallon at a time. Yeah.
That's
2 gallons
that's
a week.
The old 2-stroke Detroit proactive oil changer.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
You just leak it out. Yeah, absolutely.
What do you think, in your opinion? I mean, eventually, I think something's going to happen. I mean, it's got good oil pressure. It's a good truck. I just don't. What's going to happen though?
Nothing. I mean,
I don't know what's going to happen.
That consumption could get worse. And at some point, you might just say, I'm tired of buying oil and pouring oil in it. But honestly, I've seen engines like this run for a really long time.
Okay.
Are you using the catalyst?
I got my fingers crossed. Yes.
Okay. Because sometimes it's
I tried many different things. I tried Lucas. I tried Catalyst. They got a special oil. Valvoline's got a special extreme something that's $70 a gallon. I tried that.
Yeah,
I've tried everything. Nothing's working.
And both that oil and the catalyst are attempting to do the same thing. The carbon packing on the rings can cause this, so you're trying to get rid of the carbon packing. But obviously, that's not working for you. We have talked about that ISX, but I think you've got a good, solid little truck in that N14.
Yeah, and hopefully this one lasts until that one's finished.
There you go.
We'll be good then.
There you go. All right, we're gonna wrap this up. Joel, any final words?
Yeah, I've got some advice for you. When you're in the garden, put some clothes on and stay away from the army men.
But that's no fun. You're taking away all my fun.
I've got a visual in my head that I don't know how I'm going to get rid of now.
All right. Enjoy that for the weekend, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right. Hey, looking forward to the watch. We gotta check the happy meter on the purple truck.
There you go. Absolutely.
Send a watch, and we'll see what we can do.
I'll get working on that. All right. We're going to wrap this up. Have a great weekend. We'll see you
awesome
next week. Be safe, be profitable, be fit and healthy. Always do the hard work and master the journey.